back to Art with Alex for our next project. So as you can see right here, this is going to be the project that we are working on today. So let me explain a little bit of why we are doing this, and then we'll go ahead and get started, okay? So this is showing us that even though all of these trees are probably the same size, if they were all right next to each other, they would be the same size. But that is not how our eyes work. When we look at things, okay, things that are further away, they look smaller, okay? And that is how we are going to be drawing today. So we are going to start with pencil, as usual, okay? I really like to start with pencil because it just makes it a lot easier, okay? And you don't have to worry because you know that you can erase any lines that you don't like. So we'll start with pencil, and then I will get into coloring. So here's what I want you to know about coloring. As always, you can just stick to the good old pencil. Okay, you can shade, you can draw designs on your trees, anything you might want to do with just a pencil. If you have other supplies on hand, feel free to use those. I am going to be using some colored pencils today, and we'll get into what colors a little bit later. But again, you can use markers if you have paint on hand, if you have crayons, anything. Okay, feel free to use that, and we'll talk about color more a little bit later. But for now, let's start on the project, okay? So I'm going to set this aside. All right, and we are going to start by drawing the 3 planes that our trees are going to be sitting on. And what I mean by that, okay, is that this will really help us see where our trees are sitting. So what I want you to do first, and I'll explain it as we go, is draw one horizontal line. Horizontal meaning going straight across. And I'm going to do mine a little bit up from the bottom, not too far up because then we won't have space for everything else, but that is all we are doing right now. And I want you to remember back to those last few lessons. Think about those sketching lines. Okay, so I did a sketching line. I'm now going to darken mine so you can see it, but there's no need for you to darken yours yet, okay? Now I just need 2 more horizontal lines because that way I'll have places for my trees to sit. So my next line is just going to go a little bit further up, not this much space, probably about half this much space going up here. I'm going to do mine right here. Okay, so my biggest tree is going to be sitting in this area, the trunk at least. My second biggest tree, my medium tree, is going to be sitting in this area. And now we have to make an area for my small trees to sit in. So what I'm going to do is just do another one so that these areas are about equal. And what this line also acts as is our horizon line, meaning this is where our sky starts. So we're going to have our big tree sitting here, our medium tree sitting here, our small trees sitting here, and then our sky going all the way up for the rest of the paper. So make sure you have those. If you need to pause this video, feel free. Get those lines just right. And then we're going to move on and draw our trees. Okay, so here's what I'm going to say about trees. There's many different ways you can do this. My little ones, you can just draw a triangle, okay? Good practice drawing triangles. Okay, my more advanced kids, okay, I'm going to show you how you can add some texture to your tree. And coloring with colored pencil also helps add that texture, which you'll see later on. So my big tree needs a trunk. So what I'm going to do is draw a rectangle right in the front here. Basically a rectangle without that bottom line, because the bottom line is my paper. So this is my rectangle. That is my tree trunk for my big tree. And you can place it wherever you'd like, but if you're not really quite sure about this project, I would just follow me and that'll help you a lot. Okay, so now the triangle shape. So I'm going to start with a very light sketching line. That's the bottom of my triangle. And then I'm going to sketch up as well. I'm going to go up a little bit into the horizon and then back down. So that is the very, very general shape of my tree. Okay, and again, This, for my little ones, I would probably stop here. For my older kids, what I like to do is kind of go down like this to make it look like leaves. Leaves are coming out, and usually these types of trees go out like this, okay? So the leaves are coming out, out, out. And then, if you want to start seeing the image, it helps to erase these lines inside the tree, because of course my tree is sitting in front of my horizon line, right? Okay, so, and once I color, those are just gonna disappear. Okay, so what I have here, so remember, little ones keep the triangle, older ones you can add some texture, and again I'm gonna go in with my colored pencil and add even more texture. So you don't need to worry about this now, but if you don't have colored pencil, go ahead and experiment with shading with pencil, like we learned in that Shamrock video. Okay, so that's my first tree, done. Now, that's here, that's where we are. That is a big tree standing right in front of us. Now let's move on, okay, to near. Not far yet, but near. So further away than this one, but not our furthest. So we're going to take this right here. This is where our medium tree is going to sit. So we need a trunk. Again, triangle, not triangle, rectangle, rectangle, just like that. And again, remember, it is going to be smaller than this one. So if you're ever confused about what size to draw, just make sure that it's smaller than the one we just drew. Now triangle time again. Again, smaller triangle than this one. Going up, still a little bit into the horizon. Alright, but again, you can still tell that it is a smaller tree than this one. Okay, and I can do the texture if I want. Texture if I want to. Okay, and then let's go ahead and erase these lines. Alright, hopefully that lighting is a bit better for us there. Okay, so again, I've erased these lines. I've added some texture if I want to. Let's move on to our furthest away trees, okay? So they are going to be sitting, we have a tree here, we have a tree here. They're going to be sitting on this second line. They're not going to be sitting here because this is our horizon. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a tree right over here. Starting with that rectangle. Make sure it's pretty small because it has to be smaller than both of these trees. Triangle. And up into the horizon. And then erasing this line. So you can do as many trees as you want. You can do a different kind of tree. Okay, if you're feeling that. But I'm just going to stick to a big tree, a medium tree, and I'm going to draw two small trees. Let's see, let's do it right over here. So my second small tree is going to be sitting right in between these two other trees. Okay, just like that. Erasing this line, adding texture if needed. Okay, so this right here, that is our basic idea of today's video. Okay, so we have our big tree. We're standing right here looking at this big tree. Then a little bit further away we see this medium-sized tree. Okay, it's gotten a little smaller because it's further away. And then way back in the back of where our eyes can see are our smaller trees. Okay, and this really helps add depth to your drawings because it shows that everything is not just on one plane. Okay, things do move back and get smaller. So one more pencil line I'm going to make is I personally am going to do a sun because I'm going to make this kind of a sunset, sunrise situation. So I'm going to put mine over here again. It's going to be a circle and pretty light because I don't want this pencil to show through when I color my sun. Okay, so just like that, basic circle. You can do yours anywhere or not at all. Okay, but that's what I'm going to do for today. So, what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that you like all your pencil lines. You can pause the video, you can add things in, you can take things out. Then, once you like how this pencil looks, I want you to grab any coloring items that you might be using. If you're just using pencil, great. As we go, I'm going to tell you that if you're using pencil, what you're going to be doing instead of colored pencil, okay? So don't worry, if you just have a pencil, get ready. And for the rest of you that might have some colors, okay, here are the colors I've chosen. So again, you can use whatever colors you'd like, but I have my tree colors over here, kind of organized into browns and greens. And I have my sunset/sunrise colors over here, some reds and yellows and oranges. So if you remember from our last video, some warmer colors over here, maybe some cooler colors over here, right? Cooler for the nature, warmer for the sun and the sky, okay? So what we're gonna do now is start coloring. I am going to start with the background and end with the trees, okay? And I'm gonna show you how I like to use colored pencils. So I'm gonna pick a pretty dark color for this, the furthest background that we have back here, okay? So what I like to do is I like to use the edge of it, so not the tip like this, but the edge, and I like to hold it lightly like this. And we worked on this in the shading video as well. And I'm just gonna do this until I fill up this whole area. The edges can be a little tricky, you just kind of have to be a little more careful with that. Okay, so I'm gonna start pretty light, and if it gets into your trees a little bit like that, it's okay because we're gonna color over the trees with darker lines anyway. So go ahead, cover this. What you're gonna see next is I'm gonna be adding in a few different colors to make it look even darker. Okay, and something else I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make it darker around the trunks of the trees to make it kind of look like a shadow is happening, like the tree is sitting on the ground, and because of course there would be a shadow under the tree. So I'm gonna color this area, okay, and then we'll jump back together and move on to the next one. All right? Okay, so I went in and I added some dark green and some dark brown, okay, to that ground. Now, second part is gonna be our mid-level ground right here. So I'm gonna take a little bit lighter, but still pretty dark green, okay? Assuming that the further back we get, the darker it's gonna look because it's super far away and it's gonna be in some shadows. Alright, so again, I'm just going to fill this space with green. I'm also going to add a little brown to make it all kind of look like it's the same floor, right? We all have some brown, but it's just darker back here. So I'm going to take this green and a little bit of this brown as well. Alright, we'll meet back together after this. Alright, so we have gone in with that green and the brown and made that second level. And now we're going to move on to the front of our drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and take, okay, a lighter green. Still a little dark to show that it's like the forest floor. Okay, and again, we're going to go ahead and we're going to cover this whole thing with green, and then I'm going to go back with some brown. And then we'll move on to the sky together, all right? Alright, so I have now colored all 3 levels of my forest floor. And remember, it's okay if you have some random dark lines like here. Sometimes it's easy to go a little darker in some places, but it doesn't matter because it's an uneven forest floor. So now let's move on to the sky. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some of my sunset colors. I'm going to start with my sun so that we can move out from there. So what I'm going to do for my sun is I'm just going to color this yellow. And for my people that are just using pencil, I'm sorry I said I would remind you what to do. What you're going to be doing, okay, so for example, instead of using a dark green back here and a light green up here, you're just going to shade darker with pencil back here and then shade lighter with pencil up here. Okay, so just follow that shading that we learned about in the Shamrock video if you don't have colors. Okay, so now I'm going to add a little bit of orange to my sun. Okay, and what you can do here, if you don't like how this pencil looks, what I like to do is go in and erase around the sun so that you can kind of just see that yellow circle. Okay, and the colored pencil can get erased a little bit, so be careful of that. Okay, but we're mostly just going to focus on erasing. There we go. So now we just have a nice yellow circle. So now what I am going to do is I am going to go from a light yellow into an orange, into red, and darker colors over here. So again, if you're using pencil, you're light shading over here, and you're getting darker and darker as we go. So let's pull this over just to remind you what it's going to look like. Okay, so if this is your light pencil shading, this is your dark pencil shading over here. Right, dark pencil shading, light pencil shading. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. You can use any colors you'd like to, but I'm going to start with that light yellow and move into the darker colors. So let's do that and then we'll come back together and get started on the trees. Alright, so now we have our sky. So we have our whole background filled in. We have this front part with our biggest tree, the middle part, the really far away part, and then we have our sky. And again, okay, I hope that you guys really used your imaginations and you just did whatever colors you wanted to. Okay, we can make this look really, really differently, but this is just what I am choosing to do today. So now for your trees, okay, as you notice, the background, we're using that sideways hold on your pencil, right? So that you're covering a lot of surface area at once. Well, what we're going to be doing for the trees, all right, is using more of the tip of your pencil. So I'm going to start with my back trees. And again, I'm going to stick to those darker colors like we did with the ground. Okay, so watch what I do here. Again, little ones, you can just stick to that triangle shape like this. Just tracing, practicing tracing that triangle. Or, more advanced, you can go ahead and you can make it kind of look like there's some texture and some leaves happening. Alright, so again, we're digging in a little bit harder than we did before with this colored pencil. And see how I'm actually making these strokes. You can see the strokes of the pencil. That's what's adding to the texture. And what I mean by texture is that it looks a little bit more three-dimensional and like a tree would actually look in real life. So trees have lots of different leaves and textures and lighting and shadows on them. So that's what we're trying to capture with these sharper lines. Okay, so I'm going to go in with another color as well and add some more. Again, adding texture with different colors as well. Okay, and again, and it can be a little sloppy because that's how you can make the leaves look more realistic. Okay, and then I'm going to come in with a dark brown for our trunk. And for this, I'm just going to color it in. Still a little more solid and darker than the background so that it sticks out. Okay, but not as textured as the leaves. Okay, so I'm going to come back in, try to fill in some of these white spaces. It's okay if there's still some white, but I'm going to fill them in as best as I can. Okay, and that's going to be one of my background trees. So I'm going to hop over and do this one about the same as this one. Again, I'm using some darker colors. You use whatever you have on hand. If you're using pencil, okay, instead of this shading, you can start doing some darker lines like that. So if you just have pencil, that's what you'll be doing. And so let's work on this tree and then we'll jump back together and do this one. Alright, so now we have our two trees that are furthest away, and now we are going to jump forward into this middle tree. Again, I'm going to pick, my base color is going to be a bit lighter, just a bit lighter. Okay, and we're going to go in with this same technique, dark strokes. I know that's not what I've been talking about in the past few videos, but for this, it's really going to help those trees look like they're sitting in front of this ground and background. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's do this together and then we'll finish up. Alright, and if you have some of these white spaces and you're not a huge fan of those, you can always go in and you can shade it like we did the background, like that, to just kind of fill it in, because you still have those leaf marks that we were doing. Okay, and again, it is going to look a bit lighter than these since it's closer to us, so that's good. And then the trunk, let's use a kind of a lighter brown for the trunk, again, making it a bit darker than those background lines. Okay, so now time to do our last tree. And again, I hope you are doing this however you like to and just using this as a guide. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take some of my lighter greens, okay, and start on this tree, and then we'll close it up. Alright, and for this front tree, okay, I did use a few more kind of different colors because it's the most detailed, because it's right in front of us. So that's another way to think about it when you're deciding how to decorate it. And again, I'm using this lighter brown, okay? And again, you can go in and you can add a bit more detail like you've seen here. Okay, so we have our most important aspects of this. So we get smaller the further back we go, and a bit darker as well. And then our sky, let's just experiment with that and make it just absolutely any color you want to. Sunset, sunrise, nighttime, anything. Alright, so that is all for that. Really great job today. Okay, I can't wait to see all the different types of medium you guys are using, whether it just be pencil or marker or anything you have around your house. So awesome job. Okay, I know this one was a little trickier, but I know you guys can handle it, and I will see you next time.